Boeheim has proved Owen right. He says Judah Mintz will start at point guard with Joe Girard at shooting guard. Most likely, that is. And in training camp, another safety goes down as one comes back from the injured list. We'll talk about all that and more. It's Locked On Syracuse. It's right now.
Are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Matt Bonaparte, Owen Valentine with you on this wonderful Wednesday morning. Thanks for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Today we're talking football training camp. We're talking a little bit more on the basketball starting lineup, and then we'll talk about the football schedule. Why is it so tough? Let's start with some training camp. Syracuse is in the midst of training camp right now, as well as every other program in the country. There have been some injuries, which happened during scrimmages and training camp. It's very normal. Jihad Carter was an injury that was a little bit scary. An ambulance was involved. Dino had to say all of his extremities were moving or whatever. I don't know. It was weird. But he's back. He played in pads yesterday, so no need to worry about Jihad. Isaiah Jones is still injured, the wide receiver. But I think Dino said there's a good shot at him coming back week one. Chris Bleich is out sick, but he'll be fine. And then the biggest news is that Jason Simmons, he suffered an injury, and Dino said, quote, "We have to look." So we don't know, but it looks like they might be without Jason Simmons now. So you get one safety back and you lose another, which is not what you want to see. But that is kind of interesting because that means you're either going to have the transfer Elijah Clark playing free safety or maybe Rob Hanna out there now. So I don't know necessarily what they're going to be doing with that spot, but it is the chance for a new face, which is always kind of exciting, but at the same time, a little bit frightening. I can't say I know Elijah Clark's game all that well, as I haven't watched him because he was with Rutgers last year, I believe. Yes, his freshman at Rutgers last year, played in 7 games, made 6 tackles, got a pick, and had 3 tackles against Northwestern. Good for him. Got a pick against Michigan State, too. That's cool. So Elijah Clark, by the way, this is total money, dude. Elijah Clark in his picture on Cuse.com. I almost said Cuse Countdown. Cuse.com is he has like a chain that just has a dollar bill sign on it. Like he just looks like such a king. I love him already. Elijah Clark, GOAT. I kind of want to see him out there. But we already know Rob Hanna's pretty good too. So I'm not too worried about. I would like to have Jason Simmons out there. I just have a lot of faith in him. But Rob Hanna's good. We've seen Rob Hanna for a couple of years now. He was kind of the unsung hero in a little bit in that 2020 season where all those DBs kind of came out to play. Like Rob Hanna was in that mix too. Had 51 tackles his freshman year, had a pick, fumble recovery, the whole bit. Took a bit of a step back last year and maybe a little bit of a lesser role. But this year, maybe he's going to get a shot again.
Yeah, it's a mix up, and we did this whole thing where we talked about Jihad Carter and the impact of Jihad Carter being down, and he was back in street clothes the next day. This is one where per Dino, it seems like it could be a little bit more long term, and you're actually going to have to see the repercussions of this injury with Jason Simmons, but. I don't know where I sort of see and who coming in at this point. I like the Elijah Clark idea. Rob Hanna definitely, as you said, can come in and contribute. Is this Amon Greenwood time, buddy? Is this where you're going to get excited and see that?
Not saying anything about Amon Greenwood.
Is this going to be the time for you? I don't exactly know sort of where this shakeup leaves things, especially because we're without a depth chart at this point too, and so we're sort of speculating
soon,
on
hopefully.
who's going to bounce here and there. when injury happens, right? Your odds are not going to play a football season where all 22 starters go without a scrape or a bump the entire year. So you're going to have guys that are going to pop in and out for a little bit at a time. We don't really know that situation at this point. My hunch would say that Elijah Clark would probably be the guy. So you'd have Elijah and Jihad Carter, as your safeties at this point. But it could mix up. I don't know. For your sake and for your sanity, maybe not Amon Greenwood, but this is also maybe his chance to prove you if this is a
I
starting
think
role for him now.
I doubt it. Yeah, I don't see that happening. But let's talk about the other corner that they talked about, Jeremiah Wilson, the true freshman coming in this season. They Babers was saying somebody asked like, who is impressed? Has anybody done anything to um, climb up the rungs in terms of the depth chart preseason? And Babers said Jeremiah. He's gotten a few picks. He's been playing pretty darn well here in preseason. He's a 3-star out of Kissimmee, Florida, which sounds like a hilarious town name. I hope Jeremiah comes in and makes an immediate impact. But I will say, I wish there was a guy doing what he's doing, not in the defensive back group, because that's not where they need help. I wish I heard that about. Oh, Steve Linton is an animal out there. That's what I really was hoping to hear, because that defensive line is still in peril. Um, but it's good to hear about Jeremiah Wilson. Syracuse continues to be DBU. Hopefully, with this guy, I don't know how good he's going to be. Obviously, it's just scrimmages. But if Baber says he's playing well so far, it probably means we're going to get a chance to see him, which is pretty exciting. So Jeremiah Wilson, we hope to see you week 1 making some plays.
Yeah, I like this. I like what I'm seeing from him, hearing to see Dino talk about what he's done, and I think he said he's had a couple interceptions in whether it's scrimmages or just running through drills. So it's good to see him sort of jump as a nice little thing to highlight on the page at this point when you're looking at preseason notes and camp notes. 5'11", I think. So he's got a little bit of, he's not the biggest dude ever, but I think that's a decent size for him. I'm excited to see sort of what he can learn in this time right now. You said it. It does kind of suck that, right? You've got the guy that emerges is in, probably Syracuse's best position group. I don't think there's a ton of, argument to be made there. I almost say, and maybe he's not the greatest in terms of, I think he was arrested, but Ryan Lochte versus Michael Phelps, right? I think the quote that he might have used was Ryan Lochte would be Michael Phelps if Michael Phelps wasn't Michael Phelps. And that's kind of where I see a guy like Jeremiah Wilson, the way they're talking about him right now. Like he would have been the Deuce Chestnut last year coming in, being that sort of day one starter that comes in and has a really, really good freshman year. But unfortunately for Jeremiah, he is, sitting behind Syracuse's two better players, two guys with, more than you would think NFL aspirations, realistically NFL guys. And so he comes in. Hopefully, he learns a lot. While Garrett Williams is still here under Deuce, and then even if snaps are sparing this year for him, he can fill into a role next year where there's a little more space.
Yeah, totally. And another name that we should be watching out for is the Louisville transfer, who didn't play a game with Louisville after he enrolled in Louisville last year and then transferred before the season started, which means he must have transferred in the first week of school or something. Braylon Oliver, who could be showing up in Syracuse's safety core, maybe a rover, something like that. He was a 3-star again, number 43 safety for 24/7. So 24/7 doesn't have him jumping off the page, but Syracuse likes him, so there's some merit there. But like you said, and like we've said just now, the defensive back group is going to be fine, but it is just going to be a matter of who's going to be in it. Okay, well, we will talk about Jim Boeheim's comments on the starting lineup right after I read this PSA. Okay, this is from the National Health and Traffic Safety Association. Picture this: you're hanging out with some friends and putting back a few drinks. A few becomes a few too many, and as the evening comes to an end and people start to head out, you think of calling for a ride. Nah, you live nearby. You can make it home okay. It's no big deal. What are the odds you'll get pulled over anyway? And even so, what's the worst that could happen? Your insurance goes up. You lose your license. You lose your job. You total your car. You kill someone. Everyone knows about the risks of driving drunk. The results are tragic and often deadly. However, that still doesn't stop everyone from getting behind the wheel while under the influence. That's why police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on our roads to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Play it safe and plan ahead to get a ride. It only takes one mistake to change your life or someone else's forever. Drive sober or get pulled over. Okay, it's time. We're back. Matt Bonaparte, Owen Valentine here on Locked On Syracuse on your Wednesday episode. Adam Zagoria recently did an interview with Jim Boeheim, and it was basically a piece on Benny Williams, actually. So a lot of the questions were about Benny Williams in it, but in it, Boeheim actually made a comment about Judah Mintz, which proves Owen's lineup correct. I mean, it's not 100%. The word that we got on it in the headline is, quote, probably. But I would take it as a win if I were you, Owen. The quote is from Jim Boeheim is, quote, he's really good. He'll be a pro. He'll probably start at the 1 and move Joe over to the 2. We'll see how that goes. End quote. And that's on Judah Mintz. So I said Symir Torrance because I was banking on Jim wanting to stick to his guns, but I'm glad he's not, because I will say, well, I said that it was about what I thought was going to happen, not what I wanted to happen. So I'm glad that Judah Mintz is getting that chance because he is the better player. The other thing that's exciting about that quote is that he said he's a pro. Um, Already, if Boeheim, who is a Hall of Famer, he's coached for 400 years, he's already saying you're a pro. That's pretty darn cool. For Syracuse fans, they should get pretty darn hyped too, because you've got a pro. This guy could be a one and done. And we all said that, but I feel like, I don't know about you, I was saying it in the context of Benny Williams having happened. So I wasn't that hyped up about Judah Mintz. Like, I was, but I was taking it with a grain of salt because I know what can happen. And when you have a guy who's 32 ranked by ESPN, ranked 32nd by the ESPN 100, and you think he's going to be fantastic, he's a 5-star, which is the um, thing they love to throw at you, and then he comes in and stinks. So I'm amped that Boeheim saying it validates it, in my opinion.
I'm excited for this. I think this is a good spot to, you know, be, and we were talking about it yesterday, the natural progression that this moves by allowing him to start at the 1, pushing Joe over into the 2, and how many benefits there will be for this offense in that regard. I think it's going to be a really exciting sort of start for him, and to see the comments that, that Jim's making, and that confidence early on sort of brings me to, and this is almost doing a disservice. I think of starting point guards from day one. I go to Brandon Trish. Obviously, it seems like Judah's got a little bit more potential in terms of, pro and being able to do that per these comments. But that's just, I always go to Trish when I hear day one starting point guard, which, it's not terrible company to be in, right? Trish did by not have a bad career by any means, but I think it
All-time
could be
winningest
selling him
player.
a little bit short. And that's just a nod to, Judah Mintz's ceiling right now and where he could go. In that interview, while talking to Benny, I think Benny said, very complimentary, as you would assume from a teammate at this point. Just saying he can score at all 3 levels, shoots the 3 really well, and he plays defense. And then Benny says he's just a dog. He's got that dog mentality.
Love that.
So that's kind of what you want as your point guard. And I'm really excited to see how that sort of flows in. And I also think that being able to have Symir coming in off the bench and sort of being almost like, I feel like a pacemaker is the wrong word, but just sort of being that relaxed guy that comes in and sort of might slow the game down a little bit. Not that he
Just kind of
can't
like how
run,
he
but
did
just
last year. But like this
yeah,
time,
come in
it's
and be
not going to be like,
controlled.
okay, Simir, you're the only ball handler on the floor. Figure it out. Like it doesn't have to be like that.
Yeah,
So that's actually really exciting. And back to the dog comment, I was just going to say, as Fabian Lovett of Florida State says, if you a dog, you a dog, and he's a dog. That's what he said at the ACC kickoff. My favorite quote of the
wow.
whole weekend, of the week. Um, so the other thing I was going to say, in that JP Estrella told Mr. Klein and I, is that Quadir Copeland is the greatest passer he's ever seen. That's what he said verbatim. Like that was a quote. That's nuts to me. Like
Wow.
the greatest he was like he kept like almost not saying it. Like, yeah, you know what? Yeah. He is. He's the greatest passer I've ever seen. It was like, what? Dude,
Wow.
huh? So like I'm obviously not I don't expect him to be coming out there and be like Jason Williams or anything, but like I mean, where does that guy fit in? Like he's now the third point guard on the depth chart if you take Joe out of that conversation, which you should.
Yeah.
But does he play? Like, does he take Simir's job? Because, like, I think a lot of people coming into this season, myself included, thought him, Quadir Copeland, and Peter Carey, because he's looks like a raw prospect who needs time, might take a redshirt year because it doesn't look like there's a lot of playing time. I mean, at the center spot, it's always different. You can always use a center. So maybe that doesn't happen. But Munir Hema coming in kind of made it seem like it would. And John Bolajac's not an option down there. So if it's just Munir and Jesse Edwards, I don't know if I trust that. I'd probably want to have one more guy because you don't have a Jimmy Boeheim you can throw down there anymore. I guess you could maybe throw Malik Brown down there because he's a big dude, but a 6'8" center, I don't know. So I'm curious to see if Quadir and Peter end up redshirting. If Quadir ends up playing Simir Torrance out of a job and he takes the number 2 spot, because if he can score and pass, what like Quadir Copeland's the guy then? Like, what is the point? If honestly, here's my question to you. Because Simir Torrance, there are some days where you look at him and like, obviously it's not true, but you look at Simir Torrance play and you're like, I think I could beat that guy in a 3-point contest. Like the guy cannot score at all. So does Quadir Copeland play him out of a job if he can score even a little bit?
Uh, you know, I, there's a chance. There's a chance. This is not something I've put a ton of thought into, but I think it's something that definitely will warrant conversation and thoughts. I think there's definitely a chance because I look at Simir and I see a guy that, can distribute at moments. I like him defensively, but as we learned last year, he is not a scoring guy by any means. And I don't know sort of where his distribution and defense, how much that can counteract the inability to score, right? If you're
Right?
distributing
Yeah.
outstandingly, then fine. Who cares if you're not putting the ball in the hoop if you're dishing out 8 to 10 assists every game? Quadir's got per JP, who saw what 2 practices, the immediate flash, the immediate little passing ability. He's distributing the ball really well. Per JP, who was there, and I'm going to trust his basketball knowledge. So if Quadir can score in any capacity, I don't really see how you can write him off in this conversation. I think he will be right in that conversation. Obviously, we're making predictions and thoughts here on we're grasping at straws, but as the season progresses, that is 100% something worth continuing to keep an eye on and looking into conversations and asking questions about it because that second point guard spot can definitely be up for grabs, and it's gonna hopefully go to the person that is going to help you the most offensively, uh, with the defensive look being in there. Simir is a good defensive guy, but how much is he going to be able to counteract the offensive, not struggles, but
He's a
lack of
like Simir is like he can get a steal and turn into a basket sometimes, but I do think people overrate his defense a little bit. His
yeah,
passing is very good.
Yeah.
He's a good passer and he's a really good facilitator. But if Quadir's a great passer and he can score even a little bit, because Symir's only scoring 2 points a game, if he could score, like, if you could get like 7 points out of Quadir Copeland and the same passing ability, I don't think we're going to see Symir very much. So,
Yeah.
and you know how Boeheim is. If he doesn't think a guy's valuable to the team, he's never putting them on the floor because why would he? Um, so if Symir kind of proves obsolete with the new toy in town and the new two toys being Mintz and Copeland, then you're not going to see him. So I think that's a really real conversation about whether or not Symir is actually going to even fit in. I said just a day ago he's going to start. Now look at this. So
Yeah. What a
who
twist.
knows?
Before we go on this one, I think for the future, I want Quadir to win this battle.
So do I,
Uh,
because I think Whittier's. I'm really high on that guy. A lot of people are
yeah,
saying that he's way better than his ranking, and I totally believe that. A lot of people said he should
yeah.
have been a 4 star. So I hope Whittier
I
comes in and gets a shot.
I like where Symir's sort of floor is right now, and that we know what we can get out of him, and we know what you'll see from him. But for the sake of Qadir's ceiling, this is a battle that I would love for him to win, because I think he's got that potential to, in a year or two, uh, be that guy that can come in and score, and be in and score, and be, a distributor and pass and facilitate an offense really, really well. So this is a battle that I hope, you know, for the long term of Syracuse basketball, when you're considering the fact that Boeheim is calling Judah a pro already, that for the point guard situation, whether it's the backup role or a starting role, whatever it might be, I think Quadir winning this one is, going to be very vital for Syracuse moving forward.
Totally. Audio listeners, you're getting an ad right now. Video people, you're with us. Okay, we're moving on to football, or we go right back to football. So
Full
right
circle.
back to football. We're talking strength of schedule now. Because Syracuse's schedule is not easy. You're
No.
getting 5 preseason ranked teams, and 4 of them back to back to back to back. So back to back to back, yeah, back to back to back to back. This is a tough schedule for a team that is coming off of a underwhelming year. Brenak said it's an 8-win roster with a 5-win schedule. I don't know how much I think in the Purdue game, and like the Virginia game, we'll find out how good this team is.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the roster in front of you, Purdue and Virginia are week 3 and 4, both at home, because they don't have a road. I think the other crazy part about the schedule is that they don't have a test on the road until Clemson. Like it's just like a
Yeah.
home game, the opener against Louisville. You got a cupcake on the road against UConn. You come back to the Dome for 4 straight, and then you go to Clemson. Like it's so crazy.
Yeah.
And then the back end of the schedule, it's really lopsided in terms of home and away. Almost every game at the beginning is home, and then almost every game at the end is away. From Clemson to Boston College, which are the last 6 weeks of the season, only 2 games are home games. So you play 2 at home, 4 away, all against really tough ACC opponents. Well,
Yeah.
actually, 5 against tough ACC opponents, 1 against Notre Dame, which doesn't get any easier. So at least that one's at the JMA Dome. It's a very interesting schedule, one that I don't think is great for Syracuse. I mean, it is an incredibly difficult schedule. That NC State to Notre Dame, or even to Pittsburgh, is really tough. NC State, a fantastic team with a great returning quarterback. Clemson coming in with something to prove, and then Notre Dame's Notre Dame, and then you have at Pitt, which cannot be an easy game. I mean, if Sam Hartman doesn't play, and I really hope he does for his own health, I don't know what Wake Forest is without him. If
Yeah.
Keaton Slovis at Pitt isn't all that, I don't really know what they are. So those are some of the variables that are in this discussion, but it's a tough road for Syracuse. You have
Yeah,
a really tough game pretty much everywhere aside from Wagner and UConn.
I look at this and think, I obviously I don't have the entire college football landscape schedule memorized, nor have I looked at every single college football team schedule, but I would put this 4-week stretch for Syracuse, at least in terms of preseason thoughts on these teams. It could shift. 100% it could shift. But right now, I would put this 4-week stretch up against pretty much anyone. You have your bye week, right? Talk about the importance of a bye week right now in week 2 of October. And then you bring number 13 NC State into the Dome. You go to number 4 Clemson. You bring number 5 Notre Dame into the Dome. And you go to number 17 Pittsburgh. That stretch for a Syracuse team that is still on the up and coming, right? They're by no means back, right? For a team that maybe with an easier schedule, as sort of I think alluding to Brent X's point when you hear that 8-win team with a 5-win schedule, right? With a stretch like this and a difficulty of this schedule, especially with those games, as you said, being back to back to back to back, you might not see the record improvements that reflect the improvements that this team has actually made.
Yeah, totally.
And I
That's a
think
great point.
that's an unfortunate reality that Syracuse fans might have to face. I hope they can snag 6 wins and get a bowl game. But with this schedule, uh, the more I look at it, 5-7 seems to be that number again.
God, that sucks. I hate that. Um, that's the worst. No one likes 5-7. Doesn't do
No,
anything for you. It's like, look, we almost did it. Ooh. Um, I mean, yeah, it's tough, and Owen and I are gonna try to put together some kind of. At some point, we will make predictions. We don't know in what way we will do it, but we will do it. Whether it's going to be one episode or a bunch. If you have an opinion and you want to let us know, maybe tweet at us, email us,
please.
um, comment. Let us know what you want to see, but we'll figure it out. Anyway, that's all we got today for this episode of Locked On Syracuse. Thank you for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen every day. Now go get more on the ACC by making Locked On ACC your second listen every day. Host Candace Cooper and the local experts of Locked On take you across the ACC in 30 minutes. Make Locked On ACC your second listen. That's Locked On ACC. Owen and I back tomorrow with another episode. We will see you then.